everyone, I am Chris. This is Simply Classic and today is New Pattern Day. We have a crossbody bag for you. This is the Cianna crossbody. We're going to be making this one in the video today. It comes in 3 sizes, large, medium, and small. And we also have 3 different flap options. We have this really cool thumb lock that we recently got in. You will find that on the website as well as part of the Cianna Crossbody hardware kit. We will link both of those below so that you can go ahead and take a look and see if that's something you might be interested in. We're going to be making this one today. This is the gray. I highly recommend that you take a look at the way that I did this. Typically we want to center patterns on our faux. And this is the crocodile that I'm using today. And as you can see from this pattern, I've got the large scale on one side and the small on the other. And I saw a bag that was done this way, and it really inspired me because I never would have done it that way. That just like goes against my grain. And I did it and really liked the way it came out. So on all of these versions, I did it. Okay, you can see, oh, maybe a little bit better on this yellow too. This is the mustard. It just came out really cool. So this is the first flap option. It has a thumb pull. Okay, so when you undo the flap, or when you undo the thumb lock, I can undo it here as I'm holding it. You can use this to pull this up, okay, and unflap the bag. The bag itself has got, in addition, 2 magnetic snaps on the inside. You have a slip pocket on one side, a zipper pocket on the other side, and then of course a key fob. You need to, when you first make the bag, you're gonna have to train these sides to go in, which is easy enough to do. When you are done, just go ahead and push them in and let it set for a while, and that should automatically want to do that. The bag, of course, is a crossbody. However, you can certainly make it a handbag or whatever you would prefer. The second flap option, and that first flap option, you have to edge coat the sides of that flap. Or you can leave it raw, but it does have a raw edge. The second flap option is the same shape as the first one, but there's no thumb pull and there's no raw edges. These edges are totally finished. So if you don't want to have to worry about edge coating, then you can certainly do that flap option. It gives you the same shape. Now the reason why there's no thumb pull is because you already have a couple layers of faux here, actually 4, and to add a thumb pull wouldn't work. So you can get a finished look without the thumb pull. Looks really cool. And then the last option is just kind of like we do a strap. It's a straight flap, thin. You can see from the back here how thin that is. And the thin thumb lock will work on this. I just had a different kind of thumb lock. I thought I would try to see how I liked it. I think that this gives the bag a little bit more masculine appeal. So if you maybe have a man in your life that's looking for some kind of bag to take things back and forth to work or whatnot, this might be a good option. Okay. So again, small, medium, large, 3 different flap options. Make this bag your own. Use whatever size you want, use whatever flap option you want. We're going to go over pattern pieces, so let's get going. I'm going to be making this bag out of this faux, large scale faux crocodile in this gray color. You're going to cut 1 crossbody strap. You want to start by cutting the strap first, because if you start cutting your main pieces and don't leave enough for the strap, you're gonna run out of faux. So I went ahead, that's just the length of the faux. Then you're going to have 2 main body pieces, your front and your back. Okay, so I have 2 pieces. They're exactly the same. Now, I want to encourage you to cut your faux so that half of your print is on one side of the bag and half of your print is on the other side. You can see here how the print is, the large scale or the large part on one side and the small on the other side. Honestly, I did not think about doing this until I saw a bag done this way in Italy. It was really what gave me the inspiration for this particular pattern. And I just would have probably centered the crock in the middle of this bag, which would still look amazing. However, just kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit and see if you can take a look at doing that. And it really gives a unique look to the bag. I'm going to show this to you one more time. You can see how that splits the bag up, and when I saw it, again, something I wouldn't have typically done, but I really liked it. So that's an idea for you. You can also put your bag tag in the corner, or you can put it here in the middle, whichever you prefer. You're going to have 2 upper lining pieces, and they are these curved pieces. You're going to have 2 these are strap connectors, and on the strap connectors I've already drawn a line down the center of the strap connector, and I put a piece of double-sided tape on that. On the crossbody strap I also drew a line down the center, and I put 2 1/4-inch double-sided tape pieces on each side of that line, going the whole length of the strap. Now I'm going to do in the video, we're going to do each of the 3 flap options. For flap option 1, you're going to need 2 small pieces, and I'll give you the measurements in the pattern for this. This is for the thumb lock or thumb pull. We are going to put these 2 pieces together. We're going to trace the thumb pull on here, and then we're going to sew and cut it out. So we don't want to, those pieces are so small, we don't want to try to do that beforehand, try to get it matched up perfect and sew around. We're going to just use these 2 pieces first and put them together to do that. And likewise, there's no stabilizer on this, okay? Like that, that's how we're going to do the flap as well. Now, on your flap piece, this piece, and let me explain this, for all sizes, you're going to cut the same piece. It is the larger piece, and it says on the piece itself, flap option 1, all sizes, cut to main. Okay, so that's what I've done. Then you're going to have another piece, depending on what size you use. This comes in small, medium, and large, and this is your flap option 1 stabilizer. It's going to be your template and your stabilizer piece. So what I did is, because I'm going to do the medium in this video, I cut the stabilizer piece the same, using this pattern piece, this template and stabilizer piece, that size right there. Okay, cut it out. Then when I fused the deck of the light on the back of this larger piece, okay, which is what I have here. Just one side. You only need it one side. I have nothing on the other side. If you're doing the large, this stabilizer piece is going to be larger for you. If you're doing the small, it's going to be smaller for you. Now you noticed I placed it fairly close to the bottom edge, because once we put our double-sided tape on here and put these wrong sides together and we stitch around, I know that that stabilizer is fairly close to this edge, and I'm going to be able to just trim a little bit off, and that will be where my stabilizer is, and then I'll trim the rest. If I don't put it in a place where I know about where it is, when I go to put this piece on and trace, I'm not going to know where to put it. I'm not going to know if I should put it way down here or up here or over the side, exactly where to put it. I want to put it where my stabilizer is, but I'm not going to be able to see where that is. So I want to put it about a ½ inch from the bottom, so that once I sew, again, I can stitch up, I can cut that off and make it nice and even, and then from there go up, and that's how I'm going to know where to put my template piece when the time comes to put my template piece on. Okay, so your flap's not going to end up being the size. It's going to be whatever size you choose small, medium, or large in the stabilizer / template piece. Okay, so that's option 1. Option 2, you're just going to have a piece that looks like this. Okay, and on the back, you're going to have some decorative light. That's going to be the whole piece. We're going to fold these edges in and we're going to get it all figured out. It's going to end up having the same shape as option 1. It's just not going to have the thumb hole. And then the third option is just a straight piece. Okay, and actually this is done just like a normal handle or strap connector piece, where we're going to fold the edges in and then we're going to go from there. Then we have our lining pieces. And of course, for our lining pieces, we're putting some woven interfacing on the back of all of them. I'm using Woven Fuse 2. I have this gray colored lining in linen. And of course, we have 2 lining pieces. We have a zipper pocket. So we have 2 zipper pocket pieces with a zipper pocket overlay. We have a slip pocket piece with a slip pocket accent piece. And then of course we have our key fob piece. The hardware you need are 2 magnetic snaps. You're going to need a slide adjuster. You're going to need 2 D-rings, 1 1/2-inch swivel clasp, 2 1-inch swivel clasps, a piece of number 5 zipper with a zipper pull, and then you have the thumb lock. One thing I forgot to mention on the main pieces is that you're going to have Decaville Heavy and Decaville Light on the back of your pieces. The Decaville Light is going to go 1/4 of an inch from the top and from the sides, and the Decaville Heavy is going to be 1/2 inch from the bottom. You're going to leave a space between the two, and the space is about 1/8 of an inch, and that's just so that when the bag is sitting upright like this, you're going to get a nice crisp edge on the outside, and it's going to give room for that Decaville to actually fold in. That little space is going to let that bag fold right in on itself. On your upper lining pieces, you want to cut 2 of your main pieces out. And of course, one is for stabilizer on the dotted line and one is the full piece. You will notice that the stabilizer is about 1/4 of an inch away from these curved edges in the top, but it's 1/2 inch away from the bottom. So when you place your stabilizer on your piece, you want to place it 1/4 of an inch from the top, but you want to leave a full 1/2 inch here at the bottom. It's really important that you do that. Okay, so you're going to do that on both pieces. Then you're also going to lay this piece on top, and you're going to mark where your magnetic snaps are going to go. So you can just do that with a pen or a Sharpie or something that isn't going to disappear on you too quick, so that when it's time to place these snaps, you'll know exactly where they go. And those are all the pieces to the bag. So we're going to start out by constructing the flap, the different flap options. You can see which one you like the best, and that will probably help you choose which one to cut out. All right, so let's get started. Step 1 in this pattern is actually the strap and strap connector. So let's start there. Let's follow the pattern. So I've got my flap here, or excuse me, my crossbody strap here. And as I mentioned, I drew a line down the center and put 1/4 inch double-sided tape on each side of that line. I'm going to peel the backing off the tape. And let me just say ahead of time that the method that we use when we do this strap, or this, I keep calling it a strap, this crossbody strap, is we're going to hide our edges so you don't have to edge paint them. So I'm just going to fold this up just shy of the center line. You don't want to go all the way to the center line because we're going to fold this again, of course. We're going to fold the long sides together, and we need to give this faux room to fold. If you butt these folds right up to each other, then when you go to fold again, it's going to buckle on itself. A lot of times that can make your handle wavy or it can make it want to twist. Okay, there's a couple things that handle twist is caused by, and that can certainly be one of them. So I'm actually going to do, make sure that I am not bringing that fold or that edge all the way up to the line. It's just shy of that line. And I say just shy, I mean less than 1/8 of an inch. The other thing I'm not doing is I'm not pulling on this faux. I'm just taking it and folding it up and then just pushing the edge down, okay? If you, when you're making your handle, if you're at this point, your handle's laying like this and it's already starting to curve, it means that you're gonna have a problem. So a lot of times the problems with the handle twisting starts at the table. You want to make sure you fold it properly. You want to make sure you don't pull it as you fold it. I did that for a long time and couldn't figure out why my handles were twisting. And then I realized I was making them twist when I was folding them. So you have to be just aware of what you're doing, making sure you do not pull on that handle or on that fabric as you fold it up. As you can see, I'm just kind of folding. I'm not pulling at all. Okay, and you can see here that space right in between. When we go to fold this in, you'll see how that space gets taken up because it's giving those edges a place to go, and now that handle will lay nice and flat. So I'm just going to finish folding this in. And you can see I'm also not rubbing my hand along the faux. Okay, I'm trying to just press it down, letting the double-sided tape do its work, and I'm not taking this and pushing it this way or pushing it that way. That's another reason why your handles and straps may twist, is because you're actually pushing that faux along, and as you do, you're stretching it. So a lot of times I'll even in the middle of folding go to the other edge, make sure my edge is lined up properly, and then as I lay the rest of this down, I should not get any extra fabric or faux. It should all lay down nicely. And you can see how nice and flat that handle is at this point. So from here, we are going to go ahead and fold again. And we are going to put some clips. Now, when you have a pattern like this, the nice thing is that you can match the pattern up. So you can see here how I have the print on the pattern, and the small portion of this print is together, the large portion of this print is together. That also helps us when you have a print like that on a handle. It helps us just make sure that things are not lined up, because when we clip this, if we're clipping it and we're pulling like this and we're clipping, obviously our handle is going to get twisted, okay? So just be very gentle. Don't pull whenever you're creating your straps and handles. So now we have the handle all ready to go. Before I stitch that, I want to get my strap connectors, and I'm going to fold those into the center. And this time I do want the centers to match. Okay, so those long edges are matching there. Do the same thing with this one, but we're not going to stitch these just yet. We want to wait and stitch them once they're on our bag. So I am going to just set these aside, and at this point the strap connectors are done with everything we need to do. So put those aside, and then we're going to go ahead and stitch our handle. I'm going to go up about 1 inch, and then I'm going to do a little back stitch, and you'll see why in just a minute. About 1 inch away from the edge, I'm going to do a little back stitch again. And then we're going to stitch the other side and do the same thing with the back stitching. We're going to make 2 measurements on these handles, on the short ends of this handle. Make sure they're going in the same direction. Make sure they're nice and even. And then we are going to measure 1 inch and 3 inches. So I'm going to put my ruler at the 3 inch mark. Just go ahead and make a line right here at the 1 inch mark, or at the 3 inch mark, and then I'm going to make another line at the 1 inch mark. Okay, so I have 1 inch and I have 3 inches. So then what you're going to do is cut up to your 1 inch mark. And you're cutting on the inside of your stitches. And that's the whole reason why we back stitched at 1 inch, is because that's essentially where our stitches are going to end. So you want to make sure you have a nice good pair of scissors here to do this. And then you're going to cut just these stitches off, okay? You want to leave this middle section, and we're just going to cut these 2 pieces off. We want to cut them even with each other. There we go, okay? And now we have these 2 middle sections left. So from here, I want to go ahead and at my 3 inch mark, I'm going to double check and make sure I know exactly where that is. I'm going to take a craft knife, and I want to go through just the first 2 layers of this handle. So this handle is 4 layers, right? Because we fold it in half again. I don't want to go through all 4 layers. I just want to go through the first 2. So in between my 2 stitch lines, I'm just going to, and I'm going to start just by putting a little bit of pressure And then once I think I'm through, I'm going to check it. And at this point, I really like to use my point turning tool to stick this in and make sure that I am through 2 layers only. And if you're only through 1, you can make a little bit more of a slit. But I like to get this nice and opened. And essentially you can see here, okay, where that slit is. And it's going through 2 layers. Here's my first layer, here's my second layer, and then that's the third, and of course the fourth underneath. So from here, you want to cut off these front 2 pieces of your faux. So you just have the back left. And then I'm also going to further cut these at a small angle because I'm going to want to go ahead and push these through that hole, and I need to angle them to do that. So you're going to put your strap adjuster on. So you're going to put it through and through again. And then you're going to be taking this edge and putting it in this hole. So sometimes an awl will help with this. Let me get my trusty awl. And I just want to take this faux and push it through that hole. Takes a little bit of finagling, but once you get it through, it works well. You just kind of keep pushing until you get it. So once you have that pushed all the way through, what we're going to do from here is stitch, and this time we're going to stitch this way, and we're going to come right up the center here as far as we can get, as close as we can get to the strap adjuster, and then we're going to go backwards. You want to go over this seam right here. You are going to back stitch, so what I'm going to do is go forward, and then I'm going to back stitch right over that stitch. And that is what your finished strap connector looks like right there. Okay. Looks great on both sides. And that will hold wonderfully. So take your other side, you're going to put a swivel clasp through the other short side, bring the side up to the strap connector or strap adjuster down the other side. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing on this side. And you see how I had already cut the edges in. So I'm just going to take these top 2. Now make sure that you're putting your slit on the correct side. Okay, so the slit, I want the slit to go on the underside. Okay, so there's my slit. I'm going to make sure I am through. Two layers. Make sure it's nice and opened up. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the bottom 2. And then I'm going to cut a little angle in the remaining. Let's put the other swivel clasp on. we're going to put this down in the hole. Again, either using an awl or a point turner of some sort to get down in there. Okay, once it's in there nice and flush, we're going to go ahead and stitch. Go ahead and melt my threads. Okay, and now we have edges that we don't have to worry about edge coating. They're finished, they look great, and we're done with the crossbody strap. So we're going to set this aside, and now we're going to look at these flaps. So let's look at flap 1 first. We have 4 pieces here. We have the 2 thumb lock pieces and the 2 strap pieces. I'm going to put some double-sided tape right along the edge of this stabilizer piece. For the thumb hole, I'm going to use a larger piece of double-sided tape, but if you don't have it, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry too much about it. And I'm going to put that right in the middle. Okay. So this is essentially going to act as tape, or is glue rather. We're going to put these 2 together. Don't worry about matching up the edges. We're going to trim all that back. We're going to put these 2 together. Now I do want to try to match up my short edges if I can. Doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to be trimming it. But I know that my stabilizer comes in close to this bottom edge. So now we want to lay the template pieces right on top, and we want to trace them. And the tracing is going to be the cutting line. So I'm going to use ballpoint pen for this because I want you to be able to see it. You obviously want to use a air erase marker or a silver marking pen, something like that. Okay, so you see how I just marked right on that? Mark the bottom. Mark this other side, and you see I'm using a ruler to aid me to make sure that this is a nice straight line on this flat piece. Okay, and then I'm going to mark the top. Now, in addition, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and mark my 2 rivet marks. And actually, I need to punch a hole in those first. Okay, so there's one right there and one right there. Okay, so you should be able to see those marks really well. I'm going to do the same thing on this small little piece here. So I'm going to hold that straight and then draw a line all the way around. Okay, so from here, we're going to stitch using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance away from the line. And then we're going to cut our line away. Now the bottom of these two pieces are going to end up being underneath your thumb lock. So that's where you can backstitch to make sure that everything is good to go. And of course with this small piece, you really want to take your time and do hand stitches or hand crank your wheel, because not only is it small, but you also have a lot of curve here. Okay, so you can see, I think, my stitch line there and my drawn line. So we're going to do the same thing for the flat piece. So once again, we have our lines that we're going to cut on. So I'm just going to take a nice sharp pair of scissors and I'm going to just cut those lines right off. You can certainly take this to your table and use a rotary cutter and a ruler to do that. What we're trying to do is get a nice even edge so we can edge paint. Okay, so all that can be thrown away. And as you can see on this flat, I used the large scale part for one side and the small for the other. And I'm going to kind of see how I like it put together when it's done to see which side I want to put this on. So we're going to sew our thumb lock right on top. So I'm going to very carefully cut this out. And essentially this is going to go together like this, and then we're going to have our thumb piece that we're going to be able to pull. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little base coat and edge coat on this, and that way it can be drying while we're continuing on with the rest of the bag. And you don't have to do that. You can leave these edges raw. Okay, you certainly do not have to worry about edge coat if you don't want to. While that is drying, we're going to move on to flap option 2. And flap option 2, you should already have your Decaville light right on the middle of this piece. You're going to take some double-sided tape and put it along these long edges right in between the triangles and the short edge. Okay, so this is what we have. From here, we're going to peel the backing off the tape and we're going to fold these edges in towards the center, but you're only going to be able to go as far as what your triangle's cut to. So I'm going to start there, fold that in as far as I can, and then just using my Decoville, kind of fold right around that edge. Okay. And I do want the edge of the triangle to curve over to the wrong side just a bit. Okay, so you can see right here, this edge right there. See how a little bit of this side is curved over onto the wrong side? So when you turn this over, you can't see any of those raw edges. The little bit of the raw edge is on the back side. So from here, we're going to take a little bit more double-sided tape. We're going to fold this in half, stick it together. So I'm just going to put it on half the piece. And then we're going to fold right along the edge where these triangles are, right, or right in the middle where the triangles are. And we're going to match our short edges. Okay, and now we're going to stitch. We're going to back stitch across this bottom. We're going to come up, cross, and then back down. And there's our flap. Easy enough. And then of course we'll put our thumb lock at the end and we'll put our rivets on and rivet it on when we're done. So that's flap 2. Flap 3, we're going to draw a line down the center. We're going to put some double-sided tape right along that line. This is just like a handle. We're going to peel the backing off the tape. When we fold our long edges in, we want them to meet. Okay, then from here we're going to fold this so the short edges meet. So we're going to fold this in half again. You can put some double-sided tape on this, hold it in place, and we're going to stitch. Now, what this does for us is it gives us a finished edge on the back of the bag where the handle or where the flap is going to attach. Because our thumb lock is going here, and this is the part that's going to attach to the back of the bag. So it's same thing here. You know, we have that finished edge there. That's what's going to go on the back of the bag. And then thumb locks will go here. So we're going to stitch this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And that's our flap. Now, all of the flap options have a place for you to mark your rivet holes, okay? So you want to use that as a guide to mark where those holes are going to be, but you certainly don't want the holes to go over any stitch lines. So depending on how far away you stitch from the edge, you should be stitching about 1/8 of an inch. But you want to go ahead and mark for your rivets, your holes for your rivets. I would say that you almost can eyeball this if you prefer, because especially on this one's thin. You know, this one's really narrow, where the other flap options have got a wider base here. But when I look at this, I know that I'm going to want to put one, you know, right about there and one right about there, because that just makes sense. I could put a third on this one, but I'm just going to do 2. This one is going to be a lot closer, and the rivets are going to have to be really close to each other. But if I marked this first and then I stitched over, because maybe I stitched a little too far away from the edge or too close to it, or whatever it may be, just make your own holes, okay? These are guides, but do what makes sense. Don't punch a hole over your stitch line. So I'm gonna go ahead and punch these holes right now. There's no reason to wait. Okay, so there's holes in that one, and then we have this one, and I'm going to go check on my other flap to see how we're coming. Probably going to have to do another coat of base coat, and then we'll have to put some edge paint, and then we'll be able to sew the thumb tab to the actual flap. So I'm going to set these aside, go check on that, and then we'll continue. I put another coat of base coat on the flap 1 piece and the thumb piece, and now we're going to go ahead and work on the exterior of the back. The first thing that we want to do is put our D-rings on our strap connectors. So go ahead and grab those. You are going to measure 1.5 inches down, and you're going to draw a line. Once again, I'm going to do this in ballpoint pen so you can see my line. And I'm marking this on the wrong side. You're going to take a little bit of double-sided tape, put it on this short edge, and then you're going to peel the backing off that tape, and then fold that short edge over to your line. You're going to put another little piece of double-sided tape on the other side and fold the other edge up. Okay, so now we have the seam right there. I'm going to put one more little piece of double-sided tape because we're going to want to use that to hold that piece on our main pieces while we sew. So I'm just going to repeat. Repeat that entire process. Okay, so from here you want to take your main body piece, and each main body piece has a spot, a placement spot for your strap connectors. Now, the main thing you want to make sure of is that when you mark those, if you put this on the left side of your bag and mark it, you want to put it on the left side of this piece and mark it as well. Don't put one here and one here. Okay? You're on the same side. So I'm just going to lay this down right on top of my piece. And you see it's at an angle. That is by design. I'm going to peel the double-sided tape off that, and I'm just going to lay this right inside that spot. So when you cut your pattern piece out, go ahead and cut out that hole as well. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the side. Okay, so now we're going to sew this. And we're going to get as close as we can to the hardware. We're going to sew across, down, across, and back up. I'm going to pull the threads through the back, tie them off, and then we're going to put a rivet right here in the middle. I'm going to start where the strap connector is because I know I can put my foot right up against that D-ring, and I know exactly how far away I can get from my foot. When I turn, I want to protect my hardware. I do not want to get that scratched up. So I'm just going to put a piece of leather there. I'm going to pull this thread through to the back. And I'm going to start and stop in the same hole. Once I tie those off, I am going to put a little piece of double-sided tape over the knot to help hold it. Okay, and then right in the center of that square, I am going to make a dot. We will punch and put a rivet. Okay, I will set that rivet and I'm going to repeat the same process here on the other side. So we now have the rivet set. We have our D-rings on, our strap connectors on. Everything looks good. So we're going to now connect the bottom of this bag. So let's go ahead and clip these together. We're going to stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then we'll open it up and top stitch. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of finger press this open, and then we will top stitch on each side. so that's top stitch down, holding our seam open. And from here we are going to go ahead and, I like to put my D-rings down just so I don't get in the way for the side seam. And I'm going to go ahead and clip these and stitch. And you're doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So from here we are going to open up the side seams and go ahead and box the bottom, matching up our seams. Now I like to put usually some double-sided tape on either side of the seam to hold it open. If you don't have any, you could certainly use maybe some duct tape, not duct tape, yeah, duct tape or something like that to hold it open. It should work on the faux. Just going to put a little bit of this on and then open up these side seams. And it's also going to help the bag lay a little nicer too once we get it all together. So peel the backing off the tape on both sides and then just open this up. Kind of finger press that down. And then we'll be able to clip this together. Do the same thing here. And then we will clip, match the seams and clip. And now we're going to stitch this. And you want to stitch right up against your Decaville. And that should be about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to do 2 lines of stitching here. One's about 1/8 of an inch or even less than that away from the original stitch. And then I'm just going to clip off the excess. Okay. And there we have it. So I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. trim that down. And then we can go ahead and flip the bag. So from here, you can go ahead and put your bag tag on, and you can either obviously put it here in the center or you can put it down here on the right hand side. I would avoid probably putting it anywhere up here at the top just because you have your flap here that's going to come down, and I just think it interferes with it some. So go ahead and put your bag tag on, and then we will move on to the lining. Before starting on the lining, I went ahead and put a coat of paint on my piece, my flat, #1 flat piece. So that is now drying. I'm just going to mark the centers of my lining on both the top and the bottom. Now the top is the part that has the smaller cutout. See, the bottom's got a larger cutout, the top has a smaller cutout. So this is the top. We're going to start out by putting some double-sided tape on our zipper overlay. And then from the top of this bag and in the center, we are going to measure down 1.5 inches. We are going to peel the backing off of this tape. And we're going to place this right in the center. All right, so now we're going to stitch around the outside of this rectangle. Did do a little back stitch there because of the print on this faux. It's a little hard to see any back stitches, so it just prevents me from having to pull any threads through to the back. Okay, so now we're going to cut this middle section out. And you do not need to cut this even with the opening, this lining. You just want to get it out of the way so that you can not see it from the front, okay? So you see here, if I peel that back, I'm just going to cut it right along that line right there. So it doesn't matter what it looks like from the back. It only matters what it looks like from the front. It looks wonderful. Let's set that aside for just a minute. We're going to put our zipper pocket together. I have started putting double-sided tape on this, and it really has helped my zippers from becoming less wavy in my zipper pockets. think it just kind of holds everything in place a little better. You can certainly clip this. You don't have to use double-sided tape. I'm going to put the wrong side of the zipper against the right side of this pocket. Once I peel the backing off this tape. And I'm not going to pull or stretch this in any way. I'm just going to lay it down and make sure that the edge of the zipper is aligned with the edge of the pocket. We're going to stitch this on. And we're going to open this up so that the zipper tape lays flat. Okay, and we're going to stitch. We're going to remove the backing off the other side, put the wrong side of the zipper against the right side of the pocket again, and we just want to make sure that we match up the sides of our pockets here. I'm going to stitch that on. And then we are going to lay that zipper flat and top stitch. Okay, from here we're going to put our zipper pull on. The easiest way to do that is with a jig, but you certainly don't need one. The key to it, regardless of what you use or don't use, is to come in at a 45-degree angle and then make sure your edges here match up. We are going to put more double-sided tape on the edge of the zipper tape. And then we are going to center this right inside the pocket, or right inside the hole, I should say, that we just cut. So let's peel this backing off. Make sure that's centered. Which sometimes is easier said than done. And then we are going to stitch around the inside rectangle. From here, go ahead and fold this upper pocket towards the lower pocket. We're going to put a few clips on here, and then we're going to stitch down both sides of the pocket. Any excess that you have here, which you will, I'm going to cut it off. It's about 1.25 inches. And when you stitch this, you want to flip it over to the right side. Just pull this aside. Go ahead and stitch. We're going to back stitch really well at the top and the bottom. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Leave your bottom open so that we can stitch the bottom through our pocket opening. Then we have our zipper pocket completed. So set this aside and let's work on our slip pocket. You're going to take your slip pocket piece and you're going to fold it in half so that the short edges meet. Put a couple clips and then we're going to stitch. And you want to stitch using about 1/4 inch seam allowance. To turn this pocket, we're just going to fold our edge here right along our seam. We're going to stick our thumb in here, hold it down with our finger, and then just go ahead and turn that out. Use a point turner just to get the very tip of that out. And you have a nice neat edge with no clipping. Okay, from here you want to go ahead and press this pocket. I'm going to stitch it together first. And take this over to the iron and give it a good press. I have the pocket piece pressed. I put double-sided tape on both sides of the accent piece. This is your slip pocket accent. I'm going to peel the backing off of this tape. And I'm going to lay the top of this just shy of the 1/2 inch mark. If you're not sure where the 1/2 inch is, you can certainly draw it in. You don't want to put it too far up because when you fold this over, you want these edges to meet. Okay, so you want these two edges here to match up. And that's how you know that this is nice and straight, even with the other side. So when you sew, you're going to catch both sides. And we're going to go ahead and stitch. Go ahead and cut the ends off even with the pocket. Okay, and now our pocket is completed. Go ahead and take your other piece of lining. We are going to place it 1.5 inches from the top and centered. Now this pocket's pretty small. You probably are not going to want to put a line down the center, but it's certainly up to you, however you want to handle it. I am going to use my magnets to hold this on instead of pins. These are the Sew Tight magnets. Okay, and now we're going to stitch down, over, and up. So from here, we want to go ahead and do our key fob. So we're going to set this aside. We're going to take our key fob piece, put double-sided tape on just one side. Accidentally put it on two. We put it on just one. And we're going to peel the backing off that tape, and we're going to join these long edges. Now they don't have to be exact because we are going to trim it down. And we're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch away from this raw edge. I'm going to take this over to my cutting table, and I'm going to use my rotary cutter and ruler, and I'm just going to trim this seam allowance back to 1/8 of an inch. From here, take your 1/2 inch key fob, go ahead and put it over the edge, fold that down, punch a hole and place a rivet, or you can stitch this on. You do not have to use a rivet here. Okay, I will set that rivet and then our key fob will be completed. So from here we need to put our upper lining pieces on. So the upper lining goes on this top section here. Okay, so it should fit on there perfectly. Go ahead and clip it in place. And we want to stitch this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is important. Make sure you get the full 1/2 inch. Essentially what you're going to do is stitch against your stabilizer, but you're stitching from this point here all the way over to this point here. So you're going to be basically stitching a straight line so that when we flip this up, okay, it's going to make this kind of 1/2 inch section that juts out go away. So let me stitch that on and then we will top stitch. So now you'll see I stitched right beside the stabilizer, and in the back you can see how that's stitched straight across right from this edge to this edge. So we are going to go ahead and open this up, and we're going to let the upper lining fall into the lining piece, okay, the back of the lining piece. Usually when we do this, we do it this way and we stitch on our upper lining, but we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to stitch on our actual lining itself. So there's one side done. We're going to do the same thing for this side. And I'm not going, as you see, I didn't go all the way to the end. I just started right where my upper lining was. The next thing we want to do is put our magnetic snaps on. So go ahead and mark. You have your dots already on the back side. So just go ahead and mark where your holes are going to go. And the main thing you want to make sure of is that you put both male sides of the snap on one piece and both female sides of the snap on the other piece. So I'm just going to cut holes here. So I'll put the male's on this side. Put the females on this side. Washers on, and then we'll bend these back. And the last thing I like to do, I'm not going to put any Decaville heavy on here because I already have the Decaville light on the back, but I do like to usually go ahead and use a hammer and just tap these down really well, and that just kind of helps them stay in place. So I usually kind of start the process of folding them over and then let the hammer kind of take care of the rest. So I'm going to go over to my hammering station and hammer these down. So now that I have those on, I am going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of them. It's going to help protect the other side from the metal, which in this case will be the main part of the bag. And also it's going to kind of help hold all of it in place. Once that's done, you can go ahead and snap them together. And we're going to line up the sides. I do want to slip my key fob in here, because I tend to forget that. I certainly don't want to do that. I'm just going to slip it inside. And we are going to start this seam using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then we are going to increase it to anywhere between 5/8 and 3/4 of an inch because we don't want a baggy lining. So you can see there how much I increased that seam allowance. Started at a 1/2 inch and ended up closer to 3/4. We do want to cut these back, but you don't want to cut it back too close to the top because we want to open these up. Or what you could do even is take this over to the iron and press it down really well. I want to make sure these seam allowances stay open. Actually, I can finger press. That'll work too. I am going to cut off this bit of key fob here. So our lining is complete. Looking good. So from here, we want to stick our bag inside of our lining. I'm going to go from the bottom up. Now remember, we took a larger seam allowance on this lining, so the bag is going to be tight in here because essentially our lining is a little bit smaller than our bag. And the first thing you want to do is match up these side seams. Go ahead and clip those in place. Okay, and then you can go ahead and match up the rest. You don't have to worry too much about finding the centers because the upper lining and the upper of the bag is exactly the same size. So, oops, clip fell apart. That's what happens when your clips, you use them too much. They just sometimes come apart. Now, when we sew these curves, we are going to sew them at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is why you have your stabilizer a 1/4 inch away from the curves in the top. Okay. So you want to sew from the inside and just make sure you stay a 1/4 inch away all the way around. And then you can use your Decaville as a guide to do that. And you're even going to do the 1/4 inch down here in these corners, okay, in the side seams. So I'm going to start right here in this corner. So to the other corner of the Decaville, I'm going to turn. We're going to come up this curve. And then we will continue on. Sew right down to the corner without sewing on the Decaville. Turn, sew across. Sew right to the corner again. Turn, and then we'll sew around. so from here you have some cuts we need to make. You want to cut in these corners, okay? So you want to cut down to your stitch line. Don't cut through it, just cut right down to it so that this will turn okay. The other thing is you're going to want to cut around these curves. So I'm going to use my good sharp scissors and cut little triangles in here. And I want to cut close to the stitches, but I don't want to cut into the stitches. Okay, and then once I do that, I'm also going to trim this back to about 1/8 of an inch. But I always like to cut those triangles first. Okay. So I'm going to repeat that on all of the corners and all of the curves. I have a little bit of my upper lining here that you basically, when you stitch across the side, you get a little piece of it there. Go ahead and clip that off as well. You just want to get all the bulk out that you can. From here, you can go ahead and pull your bag out. And you want to make sure that once you have it out, you get your upper parts out really well. So I'm going to just poke those curves out first. And I'm just using my finger for this. If you clipped in there really well, you should be able to just use your finger to poke it out. Okay, same thing on the other side. Right in here, I might need to put actually what it looks like is I clipped my stitches when I did my cuts. You see how that's coming through right there? But that is okay. What I'm going to do is push it back through and just restitch. Yep, I sure did. Aha! So, show that to you. So when I clipped, You see I clipped my stitches right there. I got too close. Actually, even got on my deca bill. But I'm gonna have to restitch just right there to make sure that does not come apart any more than it already is. So if that happens to you, don't worry, just restitch. Let's see how that looks. Looks like I did the same thing over here. My goodness. Got a little scissor happy tonight. Okay, so I did the same thing in this corner right here. I clipped my stitches, so I'm just going to stitch that again. There we go. Looks much better. Now, the backing of my double-sided tape that I put on my magnetic snaps has come off. But I'm okay with that because what's going to happen is that now the upper lining is going to stay to the bag really well because now it has some double-sided tape there. So I got a little added bonus there. Might even pull the double-sided tape off the other side. Why not? Pull that double backing off. And go ahead and there we go. Cool. Okay, so from here, just go ahead and on the sides, of course, you're not going to have any upper lining. So we're just going to push that in. And you're going to need to roll that down. And put a few clips. Now this is the part of the bag that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. You're going to have to train to go in if that's the look you want, okay? Otherwise it's going to want to pop out. I really didn't, like I said, the inspiration bag did not pop out, it went in. And I really don't like seeing that lining when it's out, so my preference is to have it in. And once you do that and you snap the bag closed and you leave it for a little bit, it's going to automatically do it. You don't have to worry about it coming undone or not going in. It's going to naturally want to do that. So I just want to make sure that my lining and my main part of my bag are pushed out all the way here on the sides. And I will even roll my lining in a little bit just to make sure that it is, okay? Make sure everything lines up. Okay, so from here, we want to top stitch. Now, if you have a cylinder arm machine, you can certainly top stitch on that. That obviously would be where I'd go first because that's my preference. You can stitch this on this machine. Okay, you can go through and you can stitch on a flat bed. You have enough space, you have enough room. I am going to go to the cylinder arm because it's easier and because I have that available to me. Just make sure that if you do it here on the flat bed, you get your D-rings out of the way because you certainly do not want to stitch over those, and obviously you will break your needle. So I'll meet you at the cylinder arm. We will go through and top stitch this whole thing. Now, if you find it too hard to top stitch from the right side with this bag upside down, you can do one of two things. You can turn the bag inside out and stitch from the right side, or you can stitch from the wrong side all the way around. And as long as your bobbin looks good, there's nothing that says you can't do that. And you can stitch from the wrong side all the way around. Now, I almost forgot, we need to put our thumb lock on. And on your main part of your bag, you do have a marking for that. And you should have marked that in the beginning, so shame on me. I should have told you to do that. So you have a lock placement line. What I'm going to do is use the strapped connector to kind of line up where I know this should go. And I'm going to put a little dot there. I'm going to, even though my dot's there, I am going to make sure that this is in the middle, because ultimately that is what I want. So let's see, if I measure from here to here, that is, okay, so it looks good. So take your thumb lock piece, and the way that this thumb lock works, let me show this to you, because the first time I put it on upside down. So let me see if I can save you that mistake. So of course you have two pieces here. This piece is going to go on your flap, and then this piece goes on the bag. The little bar up here is the top. Okay, so it goes like this. First time I put it on this way. Oops. So make sure you put it on the right way. So just go ahead, and you've got a washer in here for this bottom part, and then you have two screws to attach the top part to the flap. So I'm just going to mark my washer, make sure I don't lose my screws. We are going to take a craft knife or something similar. We're going to make sure we do not go through our lining. Pull my lining out. Go ahead and get the washer on the back and bend those prongs down. And then I'm going to put some double-sided tape. and then I'll meet you at the cylinder arm and we'll top stitch. Once you're done top stitching, at this point we need to go ahead and close the bottom. We'll just do that here at this machine. So what I'm going to do is open up this zipper pocket. Let's see, get it open first. All right, so there's the zipper pocket. I'm going to pull the lining out. So that's just the zipper pocket itself. Okay. And then I'm going to reach in that pocket. I'm going to grab the bottom pieces of the lining. Key fob wants to come through. Let's stick that back in there. And now I'm going to go ahead and clip these together. So there's the corner that we'll need to box. I'm going to put some clips on this. We had marked the center of our lining pieces, so I'm just going to line those up. And then we have the other edge over here. So when I stitch this, I'm going to be using closer to a 3/4 inch seam allowance because of the fact that as we stitch that side seam, remember we started at a 1/2 inch, we ended closer to 3/4, between 5/8 and 3/4. Okay, this is our side seam here. And that is about the size of the bottom seam I want to take. So So from here, you can either go ahead and finger press that seam open, or you can cut it back or take it to the iron, although the iron, it might be a little difficult right now. I'm going to just finger press that open, since that's how we did the side seams. And then I'm going to box this corner. So what I'm doing is opening up that hole right there, and I'm going to match those two seams with the seam allowances open. Clip that and stitch. And this is going to be stitched at about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. There's really no reason to take this any larger than that. When I'm through with that, okay, there's my seam. I'm going to actually cut that seam allowance back. So I'm just going to use my scissors and cut it back so that it ends up being about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, we're going to box the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and open the side seam up, open the bottom seam up. Go ahead and clip. I'm going to finish finger pressing this bottom seam open. Just running my thumbs across it here. Okay, and then see how that stays open. So we'll stitch this. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut that back as well. Okay, so now that that's cut back, all that's sewn, I'm going to stuff it back into the bag. I'm going to make sure it all looks good and fits well, which it does. See how nice and tight that is? And then this pocket, we're going to fold under about a 1/2 inch. And clip and stitch. And when we stitch this closed, we're just going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to put that pocket back in. I'm going to go check on my edge coat for my flap and then we'll finish up. The edge paint is dry on my flap. So I went ahead and put the thumb hole right on top, matching up the short edges, and I just stitched that together right there on that short edge. Okay, doesn't have to be pretty because this thumb lock is going to cover it up. So I'm just going to put the thumb lock right over that, okay, just like that. And then we're just going to screw this on. Now, I'm not going to right now use any glue, but you do want to use some Loctite or something similar to make sure that your screws stay in. So I'm just going to get these in for right now. And the other thing that I did was punched my holes for my rivets because I had already marked those at the beginning on this flap, for this flap. So screw that in. They go in nice and easy too. Okay, so now we have that on. So you want to go ahead and clasp it, fold the back part of this flap over, and through the holes that you already punched, go ahead and mark where your rivets are going to go. Now, what you want to make sure of is that I'm not going to do it in ballpoint pen. I'm going to do it in a silver marking pen or some kind of fabric erasing pen, because before we punch the holes, we want to make sure we're not going to go through the upper lining seam here. If we punch through here and we hit those stitches, they're going to come apart, and then we're just going to be toast, and we're just going to have to take the bag apart and redo it or something. It's not going to be pretty. So I just want to make sure that that's not going to happen. So it looks like I will be right above. I want to make sure I can see my marks really well. With a silver marking pen on gray, it's a little difficult. So let me get this airline erase pen and let's see if I can. So I can see where it is now. I'm going to kind of feel, and it is above my stitch line. So I'm just going to go ahead and punch these. And they really should be right at the base. Let's see if you can see where those holes are. I don't know if you can tell or not. You see where my fingers are coming through. They really should be at the base of your upper lining. And through this entire bag, I have used 8mm rivets. Go ahead and undo this. Put this flap through the holes. Backs of these on. I will set these rivets, put the crossbody strap on, and then we will be totally done. As I put the bag on, I realized I'm wearing gray and I made a gray bag. So I apologize if that was a little hard to see if I blended in with the bag. But there we have it, this Cianna crossbody bag. So it is really a cute bag. The crossbody straps connectors are at an angle on purpose. The reason why is because we want this crossbody strap to angle in, obviously, so that it holds on the body better. Go ahead and train your sides to go in, and once you do, you should be fine. The flap is really cute, and I love the thumb lock. You will see that those are riveted on, of course, in the back, and I want to show you exactly where they ended up on my flap. Okay, you can see like right at the base. Do not go through the stitches, so you really want to be careful with that. Okay, so this is the medium size. Of course, we have small, medium, large. We have 3 different flap options, and you can make it a crossbody, or you can certainly make it a regular shoulder bag, whatever you prefer. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the tutorial, the Cianna crossbody bag, and until next time, everybody, happy sewing.